Welcome everyone to today's event on the potential topics that likely to appear in L4M8 and L4M1 exams. As you know, these are two CA exams and there are 4 questions in each exam. So each question may represent a single topic. Therefore, it tends to be quite advantageous if we know the topic in advance. However, knowing topic and answering them, they are two different methods. And especially when the question has a scenario, and if you cannot interpret the question, then you may risk answering the question off topic, and you may still get very poor performance for that. So before I review the potential topics, then I want you to learn how to interpret a question in the exam. First, let's talk about how to interpret the question. Normally, SIP question has the form of imperative. It has imperative form. Imperative means it gives you an order, like when you sit down in the class, then the teacher may say you to stand up, or when you going on the street, then the police officer may ask you to pull over. So pull over or stand up are imperative. The same apply to the question from SIP. They are imperative. They are the command. So it has a structure. First, we have a verb, which is the command word as SIP code. Second, we have sometimes some numerical like 4 or 5, normally 4 or 5. And very rarely we have 3, but the range here is 4 and 5. And finally, a noun phrase. The noun phrase here may be quite diverse, and later I will take you a few examples and how we can interpret those phrases. Interpreting the question means that you need to understand its requirements and how to outline your answer. There are some common words there's some type of questions that you only need to provide brief answer. And there are other where you need to provide more detailed answer. But the detailed answer must be in objective tone. And there are other questions where you need to give the detailed answer, plus your own opinions over the matters. So there are different things when it comes to the question, and you need to understand what it is asking you about before put your answer down. First, about the command word. Actually, the list of common words in level 4 is not very diverse, and I can summarize them into 3 groups. First is the brief answer common word. We have define, identify, and outline. So define means just give the definition of something and make it clearer for the reader to understand and apply the concept. For define, it works like you need to explain something to a 5 years old. Okay, so imagine explaining the matter to your children. So for this common word, it only requires that you provide a short description or a short sentence or paragraph for the definition, and it is normally a smaller part of the question. You can see we have sometimes like some question like define the or define a structured procurement process and give example of one process like that. So the question here is to define structured procurement process. You just need to write a definition and explain briefly how structured procurement process works. So it is something like a process has the several steps in a structured way, and it is applicable in procurement, or it is undertaken to carry out procurement tasks. So that is a definition. Next, we have the identify. Identify is to point out the concepts that have the relationship with the subject matters. Maybe identify the key stages of the SIP procurement cycle. So here, very simple. You just need to answer in bullet points and just list all the stages within procurement cycle. Okay, so normally it is also a part of a bigger question. And finally, we have outline. Outline means explain or describe the main points of some concept. And you can also put the answer in bullet list. Okay, no explanation, just make the main points like outline the differences between capital expenditure and operational expenditure. So you just list a few things like capital expenditure is more expensive. It requires attention. It requires approval from senior management. It requires collaboration from stakeholders, especially regarding designing the specification. It may generate the income, so we need to analyze the return on investment, for example. So for outline, you just need to provide brief answer like that, and you don't need to explain or provide any further details. Now, let's talk about more and the main or more difficult common word. We have describe and explain. So both these common words require students to provide the answer in objective terms and provide the details. For describe, then just write the details of something from multiple perspectives. Imagine that you need to describe a dog or a house. So we try to draw it, but by words. So same thing applies to different concepts in procurement. Maybe describe the application of fair rights or describe different procurement policies that can be included within an organization. So we need to put many things from different perspectives in details. You can list a few things like for policies, then it could be accountability, could be about ESG, could be about efficiency, could be about ethical matters, and so on. But you need to provide the details and try to make it from objective perspective. For explain, it is about give the reasons and provide details of something. In fact, then I don't see much differences between describe and explain. Except that we have the explain the reason behind something. But normally, you can treat both. You can treat these common words as the same. And now, for more advanced and require more attention is analyze and discuss. Analyze means maybe describe. First, provide some details of something. Provide the details of something. And then describe the advantages and disadvantages of that thing. So it has a lot of personal opinion here, and it requires similar to writing a report. So to analyze, as you know, when we are tasked with analyze some span or analyze the last week work, so we need to combine the data, and then we compare it together, and then we analyze or we do the number work. Okay, here the same thing. You provide the data, explain about the data, and then you compare them together, understanding the advantages and disadvantages, and when you can use that. So that is analyzed. So it requires more work and also cross references to other methods. We discuss, as you know, when we are into a discussion, then we provide or we explain the matter from our own perspective and then listen to other. The same apply here, except that we are the only one who discusses. So we discuss means, when you answer to the common word discuss, it means that you need to provide your opinion, that is the first opinion, and then from the second opinion, we have different methods, and you explain them, and then from that argument, then we can come up with something. Okay, so that kind of work. All right, so just treat it like discussion. And actually, these common words itself may suggest how you should answer it, but the common word is just one part of the question. The question also has its object, and with the understanding the object, then you may still risk answering off topic. So the second part about the object, not less important than the common word. The object here may appear in the form of a noun phrases, of a noun phrase. Okay, so there are very common noun phrases appear in the exam, especially in L4M1 and L4M8. Now, you can see some of these words, okay, like added value, all right, very familiar, and it appears in a lot of things. We have the added value of the fried rice, application of fried rice, all right. We then have the added value of whole life cost or whole life management, whole life cycle management. We have the added value of compliance to the process, to the policies and the processes. Okay. And then we have the sources of added value. With the understanding these, you are unable to answer. Beyond this, we have the way in which, right? And then the impact of some methods. And then the core theme. This was the question from November 2025. Core theme of competition in public procurement. How to explain that? And finally, how something or how the principle, principle of competition, how principle of public accountability is embedded in public procurement, or how the principle of gaining market share is embedded in private sector. Okay. Sorry, if you really need to say something, then you only unmute when you really want to say something. But if there's nothing special and you just want to unmute to hear clearer, then it's not the choice. So please only raise your voice or only unmute when it is absolutely necessary. I welcome the feedback, but it must be related to today's event. Okay, I don't want to answer something off topic. Thank you. Now, let's continue. So to fully understand the question, you need to understand every element, and the noun phrase is just the second important element here. Absolutely, we understand about the numerical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, very clearly here, noun phrase is more important and even more ambiguous and not explained by SIP. Common word can be explained in another document by SIP, but no one explained what does it mean by this noun phrase. Okay, so here, first with the added value. Added value, I believe it is the benefits, interest, saving, or any other advantages provided by some matter, some activity, or some concept. For example, the added value variety means the benefit of variety. So I think that you understand this very well. Each ride provide different benefits. Like ride quality, they may provide the customer satisfaction. We may avoid costs like redo, rework, or extra cost for extra function. Ride quantity, the same thing. We can avoid the holding costs, extra inventory costs, or in case of shortage, then we can avoid the cost of stock out and the loss of customer. So they are the benefits of FireRide. They help us to avoid different costs, risks, and other matters, and they can generate us saving. Therefore, that is the added value of FireRide. The added value here is just benefits or interest or saving or any other things that you think as beneficial from something. The same principle apply to the added value of the whole life cost. It's about the saving whole life cost may generate and the advantages when we negotiate with the suppliers. And in chapter two of L4M1, you can see a certain question about explain the added value of compliance to the, okay, I don't like to have AI opinion here. Added value of compliance means, all right, sorry. In question number 2, you can see some question like explain the added value of compliance to the policies and processes. So we should understand that they are the benefits of compliance, of coupling to your company's policy and processes. So coupling has some advantages like we can have better saving, better collaboration, higher trust with stakeholders, and also better training for junior procurement and equal treatment for suppliers. We can have ethical standards, and we can gain the trust from or rapport from different suppliers and so on. Okay, so they are the added value of compliance. But when the question switches to the sources of added value, then we have the source instead of added value. So added value are the benefits. Then the sources of benefit are something that deliver the benefit. Okay, so something that deliver benefits. So they can be activity, system, action, strategies that enable the added value outcome. To get maybe sources of added value in procurement are the actions that may deliver the benefit or saving for procurement. Like we can do the specification, challenging specification. That is one action.
Conecta ko. Nakiona kisa Willy Center.
Yeah, I really don't like that. Okay, so let me continue. The sources here are the activities or system or actions or strategies that generate that added value or that benefit. When we talk about the sources of added value in procurement, also this was the question of November 2025. Oh, sorry, July. So they mean to talk about certain activities that procurement can do, like negotiation, competitive tendering, value analysis, value engineering, standardization, and so on. They are the activities or strategies that generate the added value outcome. Okay, I see certain question from chat. I can see that Akmoham, procurement policy. Please be specific. I'm not ChatGPT that answer kind of like ambiguous question. And second, from Shamin. Is this M1 or M8? Both M1 and M8 have the same structure for question. So they are for both. And video about how you can interpret the question before I mention about the topics. And second question from Akmuham, applying ESG policy can be a source of added value. Yeah, of course. Exactly. So that is a source of added value. They can generate certain benefit. So this is a source. Good. Now, let's continue with further question, with further now phrases. In fact, in this part, I take a lot of examples from L4M1 because I believe that it has more diversity and the question tend to be more difficult to interpret than L4M8. In L4M8, the question tend to be very straightforward, so we don't need to analyze that at all. And the question tend to be very clear on that. But for L4M1, especially for question number 2, question number 3, and question number 4, they tend to be quite ambiguous, especially with the object. Now, the most common, one of the most common object or now phrase in L4M1 question 4, the way in which. The way in which. For this kind of object, they tend to imply that you need to explain how procurement may deliver the desired outcome. The way in which procurement may deliver added value. The way in which price can deliver the added value. The way in which compliance may deliver the added value. The way in which procurement can have the organization achieve profitability objective, etc. The way in which you can see that there are a lot of things. So for this one, then the way in which means in capitalize how we can do that, or how that system can deliver that. Normally, if it is the way in which procurement blah blah blah, then it means how we can do that, how we apply specific actions deliver the added value, or the way in which compliance do something. Then it is about the relationship or how compliance may be a source of added value. Yes, this is M1. But as I said, for now, it doesn't matter M1 or M8, because for both of these questions, you can see the same way they are worded. So don't distinguish between M1 and M8 here. Later, I will distinguish between M1 and M8. All right. In M8, there could be something like that. Explain the way in which whole life cycle costs may add value. All right, so you need to explain that. Okay, so I'm helping you to interpret the question and how to relate your answer. When it is the case, then the way in which means mostly how we can apply the action that deliver the added value outcome. But in other case, like the way in which of compliance, or the way in which of whole life cycle costing or whole life asset management, we need to explain their benefit, the same way of added value. So just different wording, but may imply the same thing. Now we have the impact of something. When we talk about the impact, then it is how that matter changes procurement or changes the system, changes the organization. I think it is very straightforward. Now, this is a new common word. Sorry, a new noun phrase. The core theme. Core theme means I only have one example. Explain the core theme of competition in public procurement. So the core theme here means like I think it is a system, the key requirements of something, the key requirements something. So you need to explain what are the requirements or what should be the objectives for competition in public procurement. Why it's there and how and what are its key requirements. So that is the core theme. What could be included here and how we can explain that. And second, we also have a phrase. Actually, this is apply a clause. How a matter, like how competition is embedded, how the principle of something, how certain principle is embedded, how the firewalls are embedded in procurement system, etc. So here it means like we need to write about how we can apply those things in procurement, especially how we can enter procurement behaviors and system to include all of those requirements. Okay, so I think that I may take a lot of example from L4M1 here because the question from L4M8 tend to be very straightforward. But I mean that these things may appear in L4M8 as well. And if you just skim read the question, you may risk answering off topic, and that is even more dangerous than you will make a bullet points. Okay, so answering off topic may fail you the exam, and you may get very low performance for that question, like 20% or something, and you may fail the exam. So understanding the question is a key method, not less than understanding the common word and understanding the matter from the book or recalling the matter from the book. So this is very important, and don't or never skim read the question, and you need to read that with very carefully, and also maybe reframe the question before put down your answer. I just want to know this before I talk about the common topics. Now, let's look at the most recent topic in L4M1. First, as you know, there are 4 questions, and each question only represents a very small topic. This is the list of the 4 most recent questions for most recent exams. Now, for question number 1, we have the file rights. Actually, it is about the application of file rights. And we have a very specific scenario from SIP. So for this question, I think that beyond the file rights and beyond the benefits or added value of file rights, you need to write about how procurement in that scenario may apply the file rights and deliver the file rights to the organization. What could be the solution? To answer this, you need to have experience and also knowledge from previous modules, especially OR modules, and provide the answer. And before that, we have a question about stakeholder management. And before that, we have the sources of added value. And before that, we have CAPEX and OPEX. So for question number 1, I think the most common topic are first, file rights. Second, stakeholder management. And then third, about different type purchase, maybe CAPEX, OPEX, maybe direct, indirect, maybe other type purchase like construction purchase, stock purchase, of services and so on. So I don't know what could be the next exam, but they are the common topic, and you may want to see them at least once before the exam. And I want you to pay close attention to stakeholder management. It is not that this question is likely to appear, but it means that this question often have very poor performance, and it means many students skip this part. So I want you to pay attention to this one as well. Okay, it is one of the most common question in L4M1. Now for L4M2, for question number 2 of L4M1, we have the following topics from recent exam. First, the compliance and added value outcome. It means like could be the added value of compliance to the processes and policies. And then we have very common question about structured procurement process and electronic system. And before that, we have a question about stages of procurement cycle. I think this slide represents very well the question number 2 of L4M1. And maybe the most common topic here comes from part 2.4. Relationship between compliance and the added value outcome. Normally, they ask 2 types. First, the added value outcome of compliance, and second, about structured procurement process and their benefits. So I want you to have a look at this as well. This part in study guide is explained very well, and you can use certain ideas from that. But there are something that the book never mentioned, that is the adverse effect of rigid compliance and the added value outcome. Beyond this, then we have a very popular question about electronic system. So with electronic system, they tend to ask like about 5 systems: e-requisition, e-catalog, e-ordering, e-sourcing, okay, e-payment or e-auction, e-procurement in general. And electronic system is very also common in question number 2. So I believe that for question number 2, we have very limited range of topics, and it may come either from one of 3. First, certain stages in the procurement cycle. Second, about electronic system. And third, about structured procurement process and compliance and added value outcome. And also pay close attention to part 2.4. This part, just like stakeholder management, is often overlooked by many students. For question number 3, I think it is quite unpredictable, and I cannot make any certain assumption about question number 3. We can have questions about systems like ERP. We can have questions about the code conduct, about conflict of interest, and about procurement policies or procedures. All right, so quite unpredictable, and especially about procurement policies and procedures, I believe that you need to read the study guide very carefully and also search for relevant article from SIP website. They have very interesting article about policies and procedures. But not to overlook ERP, code conduct, conflict of interest. Before 2023, they tend to ask much about procurement structure, like centralized, decentralized system. But recently, they tend to be quite focused on processes, policies, and procedures. So this is your like warning, and you need to redirect your energy toward these topics. And finally, with question number 4. As you know, this is about different sectors in the economy. And we have 3 sectors: public, private, and third sector. The most common sector or the most common question here is about third sector. Third sector's driving factors, third sector's objectives. With the third sector's driving factors, they tend to mean about the features of third sector and how they impact on procurement function. You need to explain about the third sector features, like they receive they receive donation, they have the value, um, they may provide services to a member, they have the charitable activities, they may have volunteers, and they want to raise awareness, etc. So all of them are driving factors, and each of those factors may have different influence on procurement. Therefore, the most common phrase of this topic is the impact of these factors on procurement, right? And then we have tertiary objective. But beyond this, you have the question about public and private sector. The 2 most recent exams ask about first, what are the difference or compare between public and private sectors. And in November 2025, we have the core theme of competition and how they should be embedded in procurement. Okay, so quite, like very unpredictable as well. But I can say that SIP rarely asks about private sector. They tend to ask more about public and third sector. And furthermore, question number 4 tend to be the question that most students fail because it is the last one. It is the last one, and people tend to allocate time toward the previous 3 questions. So question number 4 received very poor performance. Just again, I want to warn you that that approach won't work, and you may still risk failing the exam if you just focus on certain question and ignore the other. So allocate your time equally and also study for question number 4 carefully. Okay, look at public, look at third sector, look at private, all all with the same way. With L4M8, the questions tend to be more predictable and more stable. First, question number 1, there could be topics about different stages of procurement cycle. They may look at different perspectives, like they ask the challenges of implementing SIP procurement cycle, and recently they may ask about benefits of structured procurement process, similar to question number 2 in L4M1. For question number 2, the most recent exam asks about financial analysis. And previous that we have pre-qualification questionnaire criteria. And before that, financial analysis again, and financial analysis. And then before that, supplier relationship and contract management. So question number 2 it is the most unpredictable question in the format, but it doesn't matter. And you need to master a lot of topic here. First, financial analysis tend to be appear here. Second, SIP prefer to ask about appraisal, about pre-qualification, and about relationship or about contract, about all other things, about all other topics. Okay, so the top priority here is financial, and then below that we have appraisal, criteria, contract award, relationship, and contract management. For question number 3, it is the, I think, easiest part of both L4M1 and L4M8. For 7 exams in a row, all question number 3 asks about whole life cycle costs. Very simple. Just analyze different costs relating to an asset. Yeah, you know how to analyze that. I
Apa yang
believe.
membantu Again.
Tanya, do you need to share something? Okay. And finally, with question number 4, before 2023, I can see that they have pretty diverse list of topics. Like they can ask about bribery, corruption, fraud, or about KPI KPI for supplier, ESG KPI. But now they tend to ask about how to promote suppliers or how to secure suppliers ESG compliance, and how to include ESG considerations in the question. Sorry, in the certain scenario. In a certain scenario, where you need to improve the impact of the organization regarding ESG. Now, I think that is your time to tell me which topic you want me to elaborate. You can ask any topics beyond these as long as they relate to L4M1 and L4M8. Any question from participant here?
Maybe you can elaborate on the CapEx and OpEx.
Yeah, I think this part is very well explained in slide guide and in the sample question. Okay. Okay, compliance and added value. Now, let me talk first about CAPEX and OPEX. Yeah, before this, I can see that there's a question. Please advise how we need to answer stakeholder management. All right, I just list the topic here, and how you answer depends on the question, and you need to pay attention to the details of the question. What the question is asking about. In the previous exam in November 2025, the question was about listing or identify different types of stakeholders. So you just identify different types of stakeholder, internal, connected, and external stakeholder with brief explanation, very brief only. And then next, the question is explain how we can manage the stakeholder. So just about explaining the Mendel's matrix and how we can apply to manage the stakeholder. Now, with other question, okay, I think you are about to ask me explain everything here. Yeah, okay, so I need to explain one by one. First, CAPEX and OPEX. For CAPEX and OPEX, you need to explain the methods that relate to procurement. And we have a few features of CAPEX that may have different approach that may require procurement to approach differently than OPEX. First, CAPEX, as you know, it is expensive. So it has two impacts. First, it may require a loan or some debt to cover the expense. So the debt, as you know, may have interest, and you need to ensure that the assets has income that that is well beyond the interest, and we don't incur heavy burden of debt. So for CAPEX, you need to analyze the return on investment and potential income, and also the cash flow. Second, because it has high value and it requires big purchase. So you need to seek approval from senior management, and therefore you need to prepare a business case and seek the approval from the senior management. Okay, next, about the technical complexity. Since CAPEX is inherently complex, technically and legally and financially. So first, technically, you need to draft a specification, but with the help of many stakeholders and even from suppliers. And this could last like a project. So CAPEX tend to be organized. The purchase of CAPEX tend to be organized in terms of project approach. Second, legally complex. So you need to lengthen your time in negotiation. And third, legally complex. So you also need to use a model contract to draft, or it may take a long time to draft a contract for CAPEX. And next we have, let me remember. Okay. The purpose of CAPEX is to generate income. So just similar to the first one, you need to analyze the return on investment and whether the asset has positive return in the long run. And finally, CAPEX tend to last. Yeah, CAPEX or the assets tend to last. So it may last a long time. So you need to analyze the whole life cost rather than just the purchase price, unlike OPEX. Okay, so they are the features of CAPEX that procurement may treat it differently. Now, with the question about compliance and adaptability. Actually, this part is explained very well in study guide, and I think you can open the study guide. I don't remember the number of page, but it has very clear part there. Okay, I may show you which one in study guide. I have the study guide here. This is the first part of 2.4. And when we talk about the benefits of compliance or the benefits of structured procurement process, I think that you can refer to all of these benefits. And also in L4M8, you have the same part in chapter 1, and you can use that part as well. Okay, this one is in, page 110 and 111. Now, contextual drivers for structured procurement and supply processes, and they are the same two benefits of compliance. So it has a benefits like you can highlight these things: transparency. Okay, consistency, right? Consistency with the way suppliers are dealt with. Transparency in procurement processes. Useful for new member or support training. And when we have standardized process, or when we comply to the process, then we establish the standardized practice. And the new members may learn from those processes. Next, traceability, enabling audit and transparency. Okay. And finally, we can identify which supplier to be engaged with and which should be avoided. So that is about ethical implication. In L4M8, you have the same, you may have some other benefits. All right, so take note, like you can see the answer from page 110, 111 in L4M1 book. And if L4M8, please wait, I'm searching. In our format, the part on structure programming process is in chapter 1. And I think that you can combine these modules together. They have very common part. Here. Structure procurement processes, policies, and procedures can benefit the organization in the following way. First, protect individual from being exposed to coercion, bribery, or fraud. Okay, that is a benefit, and that is the benefit of compliance as well. Compliance only works when we have structured procurement processes, policies, and procedure. Okay, so they share the same thing. Next, detailing how buyers should behave and what to do if they suspect a conflict of interest and what check, etc. And then maybe benefit of conform to regulations and standard. We may at least get ensure about the legal compliance. Okay, next we have maybe availability of a backup supplier, contingency plan, enhanced efficiency, and then reference for training, aid organization in audit, similar to traceability. Okay, and the benefit, there are some drawbacks, or there are some disadvantages, which could be the adverse effect or the effect of rigid compliance, like they could be outdated quickly. The information maybe the information overload. Not everyone is aware of those policies and processes. Okay, so you see that the study guide has the details as long as we know where to find it. So for this, for the question about compliance or structured procurement process, you could search from page 110, 111 in L4M1 and page 26, 27 in L4M8, 2023 version. Okay, next question here is to is it to cover the terms of relating it to ask for. Okay, I don't understand your question. MP, the user with the name MP. What does I mean by applying step 3 to 5? And what would be the easiest? Actually, for every stage in procurement cycle, then you can write relevant example. It's very straightforward, and I don't think there could be some challenges in that. This is a question from Moswin Yahweh. Touch on the impact question. Yeah, I think you are referring to the question with the now phrase impact of something. So I think that impact something, the impact question tend to appear in question number 4 of L4M1. They tend to mean like how certain objective or certain driver or certain features like competition in public, procurement, profitability in private, and awareness in third sector may have impact on procurement. It means like how procurement should change. And for example, when we talk about the impact of profitability, it means that procurement may have a pressure to save expenses, but they also have the pressure to be creative or to collaborate with the supplier to deliver the desired outcome. So the impact here, just imagine like you have some tasks with procurement and you are forced to deliver certain thing, and then you need to analyze how those things force you. Okay, so when the organization wants you to have profit, so you have the pressure to generate saving. You want to squeeze the supplier. You want to negotiate a distributive agreement with the supplier. But also you may apply advanced technique like standardization, like just in time to improve the cost base. You can try to analyze the spend and remove any unnecessary parts, or you can apply the lean principles to remove the waste. All of them are the result of profitability and its impact. Okay, just imagine how you should react when something pushes you too much. Yeah, Kenny, there are 4 questions in one exam. Okay, so I think I just received a lot of questions about L4M1. How about L4M8? Do you have any question?
Yes, Daniel, could you just, if you can provide the questions, how to answer the financial analysis? Yeah, this one.
Okay, financial analysis. Yeah, what's wrong with it? Actually, it's very simple. There are 2 parts of financial analysis. Actually, 3. Sorry, 3 parts of financial analysis. First, you need to explain why we need to have financial analysis. There are some reasons that with or suppliers with poor financial situation may bring risk. First of all, they may reduce the quality, they may deliver late, they may want to have cash early, and they may go into insolvency. So all of them are risks and may disrupt our supply chain. Second, for the calculation, then you just apply the formula here. We have current ratio, quick ratio, gearing, some profitability. They're quite limited. So there are just a limited number of ratios. So you just apply the formula. And then third, when it comes to the comments, we compare the result to 2 things. First, you compare to the threshold. For current ratio, it should be greater than 1. For quick ratio, around 1. For gearing, it should be under 100%. For margin, then it should be positive. That is a benchmark. And then you can compare different suppliers together. For this question, I think that the most important part is to calculate. And then you compare and then make comment like whether this supplier has strong financial situation. They may have strong current ratio, but they may have weaker gearing and they may have weaker profitability. It's fine. You can highlight their strength, like they have very good current ratio, but in long run, then they may have risk. Or other supplier may have like very strong gearing, but they have weaker current ratio. It means like they have very good perspective. They can they have room to sustain their operation in the long run, but in the short run, in the short term, they may have problems in collecting the cash from customer, or they may have problems in paying their suppliers. Okay, just make the comments as you see, and we may take different ratio and we may comment on each ratio separately. But remember to compare all of them together. Yeah, very interesting question. from most windy now Yane. What is mean by drivers? Okay, so drivers are the factors that push something. They are the factors that push something toward some target or toward certain trend. So the drivers could be like the steeple factors. They could push the matter like procurement or yeah. Okay, so I think it referred to question number 4 in L4M1. Third sector drivers. All right, so the driver here means the internal and external factors that shape third sector behavior. Internal may be like their objective, their features, and external means like the legislative environment, and as stakeholders may shape the third sector behavior. So they are the drivers. And we need to analyze the drivers and how they push, how they shape procurement. Next, we have a question about challenges in implementing SIP procurement cycle. So to understand this question, you need to apply a concept known as critical success factor. Not every organization is applying SIP procurement cycle. And when they want to switch to procurement cycle, they may see some challenges. Okay, so the challenges here are like the hurdles or something that prevent them from success in applying the new model. So you can imagine like what does it mean or what is required to successfully implement SIP procurement cycle. So to implement the cycle here, we need to have the appropriate technology. We need to have the talent. We need to have the resources. We need to have the support from senior management and the stakeholder and so on. So when we lack all of those factors, it becomes challenges. Without system, without talent, without approval, without support, then we cannot implement procurement cycle. Okay, so you can see that the challenge here is just the challenges here are just the supportive factor, but in reverse. Finally, we have a question about contract management. I think the study guide in L4M8 has explained this very well in chapter 2. different ways to manage the contract. Okay, I think just look at the study guide and you have very clear explanation. Okay, just wait. Almost there. All right, here, page 118 and 119 in the study guide. So this is stage number 11 in program cycle, and we have a few ways to manage the contract using KPI, using SOA, using MBO, management by objectives, and using regular reviews, managing variations. There are 4 ways to manage the contract, and you can just explain like what the study guide suggests here, like using KPI, some example of KPI, and we can set up the SMART objective. For SOA, we can define the SOA. We can define the service we want to receive, and then some remedy for achieving or not achieving, and so on. For measurement of objective, we set up the target for supplier and encourage them to fulfill that. We can discuss with the supplier and so on. And for regular review, we plan the meeting with the supplier and try to address, apply what they have done, what they success and what they fail. Okay, and apply all those things, having a corrective action plan, having a roadmap for improvement, and encourage them to have better performance in the next review. Okay, so for this question, I think it's very straightforward as long as you read the study guide. All right, I think that we have pretty productive session today, and I hope that all of you find this revision helpful. So this is the end of today's revision, and you can apply the code Sunshine 26 to my CR practice question L4M1, L4M8, L4M1 and L4M4 on Udemy. It will give you the best price. So thank you very much for your participation and see you in other event. Goodbye. And I will send the recording shortly after this, right after I have the recording from Zoom. Thank you.